afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Guten Tag.
Dobrý den.
Bon après-midi.
I have some questions for you. Is that okay? Starting with you, Mr. Gladwell.
Sure.
All right. What was your motivation for writing these two segments of David and Goliath?
Well, Chapter 9 and the afterword were exhibiting how the unlimited power of the Goliath can give them a disadvantage in the fight against the David.
How can a seemingly infinite supply of power and might put a group at a disadvantage?
In reality, when a person or a group of people have so much power, they can become arrogant and close-minded.
So you're saying that Goliath's vast expensive power will get him over his head, and you'll be crippled because of that?
Not necessarily, but allow me to give a few examples of why my theory is correct. Mr. Gouré, what was Project Morale, and what was your strategy in defeating the Viet Cong?
Project Morale was a government-funded project in which we interviewed Viet Cong respondents to learn more about them. My approach was, we have more money, men, and materials than the Viet Cong, so we could just bomb them until they gave up.
Don't you think that logic is a little flawed?
Well,
Of course his logic was flawed. The Viet Cong's morale was not going to be easily destroyed because their determination was so powerful that even 643,000 tons of bombs couldn't break it.
643,000?
several things can be accomplished when you're on a military budget, so I decided the best plan of action was spending all of the money we had on bombs. $140 billion to be exact. Even the US government agreed with my methods.
That just goes to show how determined the Viet Cong were. Even with $140 billion worth of bombs, the United States military still couldn't get rid of them.
See, the VCs were scrappy and totally aware that they had the material disadvantage in the war, so they fought with the mindset that there was nothing to lose.
Even though they were scrappy, we could just keep sending troops and fighter jets. I didn't know how long the war would last, but there is no way our enemy could endure against such a mighty force.
I see. Konrad, why didn't you agree with Gouré on this subject?
Leon may have read a few stories about the Viet Cong and why they were doing what they were doing, but he completely ignored all of it and put all his faith in the strength of the United States military.
What was your alternative theory then?
I went through many interviews with the Viet Cong and found that these people were not going to just give up. Unlike Leon, I didn't filter the stories through the lens of the U.S. military.
But I do recall from your book, Mr. Gladwell, that the Viet Cong didn't even think they were going to win.
Of course they didn't. They were going against a military force so much bigger than them. There is no hope from the very moment the war began.
That's not true! Continuous bombings on the Viet Cong could have left them so demoralized that they gave up, but instead, it made them hate the Americans so much that they would never stop fighting.
My point is, the Viet Cong may not have physically stood a chance against the immense power of the U.S. Air Force, but they were so morally strong that they wouldn't take a loss no matter how hard it would be. Am I right, gentlemen?
Absolutely not!
Okay, guys, I think I've gotten what I need here. Thank you so much for your time. On to Trocme. Now it's your turn. Why were you considered to be a David in your story?
I was on the side of the Huguenots, a group of Protestants in the mountains of France. We were being opposed by the Nazi-run government and were by far the underdogs.
Why did you first accept Jews into your community, even though it was so dangerous?
Well, one of my beliefs is that you should resist whenever our adversaries demand of us obedience contrary to the ideas of the gospel. The government's orders were not in line with the gospels, so I simply chose not to follow them.
What motivated you to keep disobeying the police and the government even after you got arrested?
I knew if they killed me, then another disobedient person would rise in my place.
How could you be so sure that the Huguenots would live on?
My ancestors and I got used to running, hiding, cheating, and many other tactics in order to survive, so we could easily get away from our adversaries.
But it wasn't really a hit-and-run story, wasn't it? Didn't you continue to return to your home in Le Chambon?
Yes, after a while we would come back because it's the sanctuary there.
Andre was aware of the fact that I tried to exhibit throughout the whole book that it's not easy as it seems for a huge force like the Nazis to wipe out a small village like Le Chambon.
Surely the Nazis could have sent all the Jews from Le Chambon to a concentration camp if they really wanted to, no?
They might have been able to, but it would have been tough. The Huguenots were very good at hiding and transporting people. Additionally, there were policemen who were sympathetic towards Trocme's cause. The third reason was because the Nazis had a lot on their plate, considering the Eastern Front was going sour for them.
So you're saying that the Huguenots of Le Chambon weren't as weak as they seemed?
Precisely.
Well, gentlemen, I think I've got everything I need. Thanks for contributing your knowledge and personal experiences to my research. Have a pleasant evening.
Thanks. You too.
Danke dir auch.
Spasibo.
Merci, toi aussi.